All right, happy Monday, March 1st. It is March Madness. It is time to get your late work turned in if you haven't already, and a lot of people have. A lot of people have made up work and turned it in. I graded a lot this weekend. But if you still got work to do, remember, it's due by this Friday, so get it done as soon as possible. And pay special attention to the tests. Those can really help your grade. Don't just do any crap and turn it in and get a 60. Do quality work, and it can take you from failing to passing all by themselves. We'll be focusing on what makes characters complex and believable, thinking about that as we read today. And I will analyze how characters' motivation leads to a deeper understanding of conflict in the plot. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But first, let's do our positive affirmations. Tell ourselves what to think so that we can be positive on purpose. And look at this one. Notice this. What class do you hate, struggle with? That's the one I want you to focus on for this one. A lot of kids, if you hate English, damn it, you hate English. Oh well, I love English. If you hate physics, or if you hate geometry or algebra 2, I love whatever that class is. And it may be painful for you to actually do it. I know how it is. But if you start doing that, it's going to make it easier to do the work. So you're going to have to just trust me on that. All right, so let's get started. What are you? I am strong, confident, and successful. Yes, we are. And how do you feel about that class? I love. Put in your class. You can do it. It's so much fun. Let's do it one more time. Did it hurt? Good. It's good for you. How do you feel about that class? I love. It's so much fun. Excellent. And how do you feel about schoolwork? The harder I work, the stronger I become. All right, and a little Carvajal comedy. Anybody nerdy enough to watch Star Trek The Next Generation? Starting at season 3, it gets really good. I bought some shoes from a drug dealer. What? Shoes from a drug dealer? Not sure what they were laced with, but I've been tripping all day. Get it? He's tripping over his laces. Yeah, I know, that's dumb. Oh well. Anyway, so if we go into Schoology, where is it? I'll just have to go back. If we go into Schoology, week 9, Monday's work. And we have discussion question. After the quiz, we're going to be reading part 1 of a short story called Through the Tunnel, which is really cool. And before you read, think about this. You're on vacation at the beach, and your child says, I want to go explore on my own. How old is old enough to let him or her go exploring unsupervised? So if you make your comment, right, and put it in there, then you come back after we've actually read, and then you want to ask yourself, well, what is motivating Jerry to keep trying, and we'll find out what, after the big boys are gone. So you put your first comment, and then you put your second comment after. So we're going to do the quiz, and once you're done with the quiz, then please go to the discussion and comment how old is old enough for your child to go exploring unsupervised, and give us a little bit why, just a sentence. But before we do that, excuse me, let's do the quick quiz. And if you click on this, there are 5 questions. They're true, false, and multiple choice. They are easy because we've been talking about them for 2 weeks of class. The only one that might give you a little trouble is the whole irony one. We talked about that last week. Remember, irony is the difference between appearance and reality. It seems a certain way, it's not. So there's that shock because things aren't what you thought they were. So if you think that way, you can get that one right. The rest of them, just read carefully. Read all the answers. And I expect to see lots of 100s. All right, so I'm going to give us 10 minutes. 10 minutes to get this done, and then we will start reading. And most of you will be done in 5 or less. If you're thinking of skipping it, suffer. Get it done. You'll be glad you did. It'd be one less thing you have to clear up off your plate if you just take care of it now. All right, let's get started. So let's go ahead and go into the story. And in fact, you don't have to open the story yourselves. You can just read it on my screen. We're going to read the first half of the story today. And this is a situation that we're going to find in Through the Tunnel by Doris Lessing. And the question for after we're done reading is, well, why? Why does Jerry want to continue trying to do what you'll find out he's going to try to do, even though the reason he wants to is no longer there? What's going on with Jerry? Why is he reacting that way? So anyway, let's go ahead and go into the story. Yeah. Through the Tunnel by Doris Lessing. Just read along with me. And if you're not paying attention, good, suffer. Focus, put your phone aside. On vacation with his mother in a foreign country, a young boy makes a decision that could change his life or end it. He said he would do it if it killed him, he said defiantly to himself. So let's get started. This is a picture from the literature book that I took it from. And that gives you a good idea. He's supposed to be 11 years old, a skinny kid, and he's British. So I'm going to try and do my British accent, and that's pretty fun. Remember to use your imagination, picture the story. We're just going to read the first half today. It's just 4 pages. So we'll be done pretty quick. Going to the shore on the first morning of the vacation, the young English boy stopped at a turning of the path and looked down at a rocky and wild bay, and then over to the crowded beach he knew so well from other years. His mother, walking in front of him, carrying a bright striped bag in one hand. Her other arm, swinging loose, was very white in the sun. The boy watched that white naked arm and turned his eyes, which had a frown behind them, toward the bay and back again to his mother. When she felt he was not with her, she swung around. "Oh, there you are, Jerry," she said. She looked impatient, then smiled. "Why, darling, would you rather not come with me? Would you rather—" She frowned conscientiously, worrying over what amusements he might secretly be longing for, which she had been too busy or careless to imagine. He was very familiar with that anxious, apologetic smile. Contrition sent him running after her, and yet, as he played on the safe beach, he was thinking of it. Next morning, when it was time for the routine of swimming and sunbathing, his mother said, "Are you tired of the usual beach, Jerry? Would you like to go somewhere else?" "Oh, no," he said quickly, smiling at her out of that unfailing impulse of contrition, a sort of chivalry. Yet walking down the path with her, he blurted out, "I'd like to go and have a look at those rocks down there." She gave the idea her attention. See if y'all can picture it. It was a wild-looking place, and there was no one there. But she said, "Of course, Jerry. When you've had enough, come to the big beach, or just go straight back to the villa if you like." She walked away, that bare arm now slightly reddened from yesterday's sun, swinging, and he almost ran after her again, feeling it unbearable that she should go by herself, but he did not. She was thinking, "Of course he's old enough to be safe without me. Have I been keeping him too close? He mustn't feel he ought to be with me. I must be careful." He was an only child, 11 years old. She was a widow. She was determined to be neither possessive nor lacking in devotion. She went worrying off to her beach. As for Jerry, once he saw that his mother had gained her beach, he began the steep descent to the bay. So if y'all can picture a beach full of rocks, craggy, big rocks, that's what you should be imagining right now. From where he was, high up among red-brown rocks, it was a scoop of moving bluish-green fringed with white. As he went lower, he saw that it spread among small promontories and inlets of rough, sharp rock, so just big piles of rocks, hills of rocks all around. And the crisping, lapping surface showed stains of purple and darker blue. Finally, as he ran, sliding and scraping down the last few yards, he saw an edge of white surf and the shallow luminous of water over white sand, and beyond that a solid heavy blue. He ran straight into the water and began swimming. He was a good swimmer. He went out fast over the gleaming sand, over a middle region where rocks lay like discolored monsters under the surface. And then he was in the real sea, a warm sea where irregular cold currents from the deep water shocked his limbs. When he was so far out that he could look back not only on the little bay, but past the promontory that was between it and the big beach, He floated on the buoyant surface and looked for his mother. There she was, a speck of yellow under an umbrella that looked like a slice of orange peel. He swam back to shore, relieved at being sure she was there, but all at once very lonely. At the edge of a small cape that marked the side of the bay away from the promontory was a loose scatter of rocks. Above them, some boys were stripping off their clothes. They came running naked down to the rocks. The English boy swam toward them, but kept his distance at a stone's throw. They were of that coast. All of them were burned smooth dark brown, and speaking a language he did not understand. To be with them, of them, was a craving that filled his whole body. He swam a little closer. They turned and watched him with narrowed, alert, dark eyes. One of them smiled and waved. It was enough. In a minute, he had swum in and was on the rocks beside them, smiling with a desperate, nervous supplication. They shouted cheerful greetings at him, and then, as he preserved his nervous, uncomprehending smile, they understood that he was a foreigner straight from his own beach, and they proceeded to forget him. But he was happy he was with them. All right, so if anybody has a little brother or sister that follows you around, that's how you want to picture Jerry, right? That's how he acts with these older boys. They're probably y'all's age, 15, 16, 17, and they're out there to have fun. And here's this little kid from another country. They began diving again and again from a high point into a well of blue sea between rough pointed rocks. After they had dived and come up, they swam around, hauled themselves up, and waited their turn to dive again. They were big boys, men to Jerry. He dived, and they watched him, and when he swam around to take his place, they made way for him. He felt he was accepted, and he dived again, carefully proud of himself. Soon, the biggest of the boys poised himself, shot down into the water, and did not come up. The others stood about watching. Jerry, after waiting for the sleek brown head to appear, let out a yell of warning. They looked at him idly and turned their eyes back toward the water. After a long time, the boy came up on the other side of a big, dark rock, letting the air out of his lungs in a sputtering gasp and a shout of triumph. Immediately, the rest of them dived in. One moment, the morning seemed full of chattering boys. The next, the air and the surface of the water were empty. But through the heavy blue, dark shapes could be seen moving and groping. Jerry dived, shot past the school of underwater swimmers, saw a black wall of rock looming at him, touched it and bobbed up at once to the surface. Where the wall was a low barrier he could see across. There was no one visible. Under him, in the water, the dim shapes of the swimmers had disappeared. Then one, and then another of the boys came up on the far side of the barrier of rock, and he understood that they had swum through some gap or hole in it. He plunged down again. He could see nothing through the stinging salt water but the blank rock. When he came up, the boys were all on the diving rock, preparing to attempt the feat again. And now, in a panic of failure, he yelled up in English, "Look at me, look!" And he began splashing and kicking in the water like a foolish dog. Once again, right, like a little brother, annoying, embarrassing. They looked down gravely, frowning. He knew the frown. At moments of failure, when he clowned to claim his mother's attention, it was with just this grave, embarrassed inspection that she rewarded him. Through his hot shame, feeling the pleading grin on his face like a scar that he could never remove, he looked up at the group of big brown boys on the rock and shouted, "Bonjour, merci, au revoir, monsieur, monsieur," while he hooked his fingers round his ears and waggled them. Water surged into his mouth. He choked, sank, came up. The rock, lately weighted with boys, seemed to rear up out of the water as their weight was removed. They were flying down past him now, into the water. The air was full of falling bodies. Then the rock was empty in the hot sunlight. He counted 1, 2, 3. At 50, he was terrified. They must all be drowning beneath him in the watery caves of the rock. At 100, he stared around him at the empty hillside, wondering if he should yell for help. He counted faster, faster to hurry them up, to bring them to the surface quickly, to drown them quickly. Anything rather than the terror of counting on into the blue emptiness of the morning. And then, at 160, the water beyond the rock was full of boys, blowing like brown whales. They swam back to the shore without a look at him. He climbed back to the diving rock and sat down, feeling the hot roughness of it under his thighs. The boys were gathering up their bits of clothing and running off along the shore to another promontory. They were leaving to get away from him. He cried openly, fists in his eyes. There was no one to see him, and he cried himself out. Poor kid, he's only 11. It seemed to him that a long time had passed, and he swam out to where he could see his mother. Yes, she was still there, the yellow spot under an orange umbrella. He swam back to the big rock, climbed up, and dived into the blue pool among the fanged and angry boulders. Down he went until he touched the wall of rock again, but the salt was so painful in his eyes that he could not see. He came to the surface, swam to shore, and went back to the villa to wait for his mother. Soon she walked slowly up the path, swinging her striped bag, the flushed, naked arm dangling beside her. "I want some swimming goggles," he panted, defiant and beseeching. All right, and that's the point of our question. We're going to finish this up tomorrow. But for now, yes, it was embarrassing. Yes, they looked down on him, literally and figuratively, right? Oh, this annoying kid. But they left. Why is he still wanting to find out what's down there? Why is he wanting to get the goggles and see if he can maybe do what they can do? And an 11-year-old boy trying to keep up with 16, 17-year-olds, is that wise? Is that something he should be wanting to do? But of course, a lot of times we don't think logically, right? So that is the question for our discussion. What is Jerry's motivation? What is motivating him, making him want to do that? If you already answered in the discussion, you can just reply to your answer and talk about Jerry's motivation. And then we will discuss that a little bit later on. Hope it got you thinking. Hope you could picture those guys flying through the air, and how long can you hold your breath? I can hold mine for about a minute. That's about it. That's a pretty long time they did. All right, so we'll talk about this in a little bit.